Hey guys, welcome to the fifth section of this Mastering in Ozone tutorial course, where we're still kind of talking about the philosophical ideas or the mindset that you should try to get yourself in when you're mastering. And this video is titled The Mastering Mindset, right? So what we're going to be looking at are the ways in which these aren't necessarily my personal tips and tricks for mastering, because I've been using Ozone since version 4. I'm not a mastering engineer by trade. I am capable of mastering music. There are obviously, professional mastering engineers that just master music day in and day out who are better than I am. But for Project Studio based mastering recordings, I have been doing that for a long time and getting good results doing so. So I've kind of taken a few different ideas or practices or techniques from some different mastering engineers, and they're mastering engineers that I liked how they got, good, consistent results, and I've tried to adopt their methods into my own. So I call it the mastering mindset, or getting yourself to think about mastering instead of mixing. So the first step one, is give yourself room to breathe once you finish what you think is your final mix. It could be a couple hours, it could be a day or two. Just come back to it, fresh ears, fresh perspective. Now, step 2, the next thing I'll try to do with the mastering mindset is I'm listening to the track from start to finish without opening up Ozone 7, and I have a little piece of paper or a little notepad on the computer, and I'm taking notes. Now, the reason why I don't want to be looking at anything as I do it on the computer screen, being I don't want to open up Ozone 7 just yet, is because I want this to be purely an ear test. I don't want to use any visual cues. I don't want to see the EQ that I see right here and be like, oh crap, I have too much low end. So I just want to listen. And I'm going to have a piece of paper or a notepad. I like having an actual piece of paper. Call me old school. But it has two different columns on it. One that says pros and one that says cons. So I'm going to listen through. And depending on my ear and if I've had my coffee that day, and depending on what's going on in life, I guess, sometimes I'll start with the pros and other times I'll start with the cons. So then what happens is I'll listen to the song from start to finish twice. First time I may write the pros, second time I may write the cons, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. But what I'm doing is I'm writing down things like pro, I like how the high end sounds. Pro, the kick sounds punchy. Con, I can't hear enough of the vocal, or the vocal's a little lost in the mix. Con, there's not enough stereo imaging. Con, it's not commercially loud, right? That sort of stuff. And then I build my pros and cons list. And we're going to do this later in the tutorial course with one of my own tracks. So you'll get to see this process happen real time. And then what I'm going to do is, once I've made the pros and cons list, I'm now going to open up iZotope Ozone 7 on the track or my master output of the DAW that I'm using, and I use Logic X. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the pros and cons, and I'm going to go, okay, let's start with the cons. How can I improve the cons that I just wrote down in Ozone 7? If there are things like there's too much low end, I can do that. Or maybe the kick doesn't punch enough. I can manipulate that with the EQ, with the dynamics. I can isolate certain frequency elements within iZotope Ozone 7, and I can improve the cons. Then after I've gone through the entire con list, I'm going to switch over to the pros. Now, before I go and do this, because it usually will take me about 40 minutes to an hour to address, at least a half an hour to address the cons, I'm going to take a break. Breaking is very important with mastering music. It just is, because your ears are going to get fatigued because you're listening critically. And speaking of listening critically, don't have your volume. Most mastering engineers or people who master music don't have your music up as loud as you do when you mix or you are actually arranging. Keep it pretty quiet. You should be able to have a conversation about 3 or 4 feet away from your monitors with another person and not have to yell or raise your voice. That does a few things. It keeps your ears from fatiguing quicker, and it lets you really have to focus on the attention to detail and clarity that you're going for. Now, after I take a little break, might be a coffee break, latte break, or might go walk the dog for a minute, I'll come back and then I will listen, only reading the pros list, because I've already addressed the cons. I'm going to trust my ear the first time. And then as I'm going down the pros list, I'm listening to it, I'm going to think, okay, these were things that I liked how I did in the mix. Is there any way to enhance them using Ozone 7 in any of the modules? So let's say I really liked the high end, okay? And let's say with the high end, I wanted to add some sizzle to it. I wanted to add some character. Well, I could use the vintage tape, and I could use it to to add it to the frequencies of my choosing, right? I could also go and maybe I could think, okay, it's not wide enough. Maybe the high-end frequencies, they were wide, but I really liked that they were wide and had some width, but I did that with just typical panning in the mix. What happens if I apply some stereo imaging to that high-end frequency that I liked already? Can I make it even better, right? So that's kind of the idea that we've been talking about, where I'm not taking it from bad to good. I'm trying to take it from good to better. And I'll just play around and see if I like how it sounds. Sometimes these things work if you try to enhance the pros of your mix, and then other times they make it worse, so you just don't do them. And then what I'll do is I'll do those changes from the pros and the cons. I've taken a break in between. I'll bounce it out, and I'll listen to it on my car stereo. I'll listen to it on headphones. I'll listen to it on my just laptop speaker. And then I'll listen again on my monitors. And sometimes I have to repeat the process once or twice. But usually if you follow this method, this mastering mindset, you're going to finish projects a lot quicker, and you're going to notice that your mixes are going to improve because you're going to realize what you need to do subconsciously or consciously in the mix, because you might get 2 or 3 songs into your own mastering process in Ozone 7 and think, crap, why is my bass end always so weak? Well, it's usually because you're not putting enough in your mix, because maybe your listening environment is kind of making you hear bass frequencies building up in the room, or there's all sorts of psychoacoustic problems that can occur in your listening environment. But you'll start to realize what your listening environment doesn't show you accurately when you dive into a plugin and software like Ozone 7 and you start to master your own music. But there you go, guys. There's my kind of tips and tricks that I've taken from world-renowned mastering engineers, from whether I've seen them on Pensado's Place, I've read interviews in Sound on Sound, at NAMM, anything like that. I've just kind of taken all of this information and applied it to my workflow staying in the box using Ozone 7 or Ozone mastering software. So I'll see you in the next video.